right, so here we are on Fast Casual Nation, and today with me is one of the pioneers of the Better Burger segment. I've got Josh Spiegleman of Rome Artisan Burgers out of the Bay Area. Nice to talk to you, Josh.
Nice to talk to you, Paul.
Yeah, it's been a while since I have had a chance to come in and enjoy the lovable Rome Artisan Burgers there, which I always like to do when I'm in the Bay Area.
Yeah, we need you back in for a burger soon. When are you coming
Yeah.
back out to the Bay?
I am hoping that we are going, well, actually, we're going to be out there in January, so that'll be a perfect time for me to swing in and see your new spots. Let's kind of jump into the episode here, Josh, and talk a little bit about kind of your background, how you and your partners kind of got going with Rome Artisan Burgers, and kind of your story. Give our
Sure.
audience a story. I'm not sure everybody has heard it before.
Yeah, so I grew up here in the Bay Area, in Marin County, and actually fourth generation San Francisco. Was born in the city, but grew up in the Bay Area. Was down at UCLA for school, and spent quite a bit of time living abroad. I did a year abroad in Madrid during college. I was down at UCLA, spent a year abroad in Madrid, and then spent about almost 4 years in Japan after school, working in commercial real estate out there. And spent some time living in Italy as well. And I think, all this time abroad really kind of shaped what I thought about food and these different food cultures and our own food culture, not just with regard to cuisine, but also with regard to health and nutrition. So I think that background really led me to this desire to create something really wonderful here in California, in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
And, all this time living abroad, you take something so, traditionally American. I don't think anything could be more American than burgers. And then, just putting a better spin on it from a more mindful, healthful approach. That always has been the goal with Rome. And that's what we strive for, kind of every day.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so when we explored Rome Artisan Burgers, we did it as part of a documentary series that ended up on Amazon Prime, and Rome was one of those spots that we canvassed very early on in the Better Burger segment. There was really only a handful of players at that time when we got a chance to see your first location. And, this has been a while. I mean, we're almost talking about a decade now of time that's passed. I'm kind of curious on what your thoughts around fast casual. What has changed in that decade over the last 10 years? What have you seen as, a working operator? Now you have multiple locations. Kind of give me your thoughts there.
Yeah, I think, there's just a lot more of it than there was in 2010. When Lynn, my business partner, and I first met in 2004 and, conceived of this notion of a better for you burger place with lots of healthy options. It wasn't something that was really heard of way back then. And then we opened actually 6 years later in 2010. So there are a few of the fast casual, kind of order at the counter, but an elevated experience type of restaurant. There were a few players out there, but now that's just really blown up. And I think, what's happened is people just want really good food and really good quality, but they don't necessarily need that at a sit down formal restaurant. And if they can pay a little bit more than, they would pay at a quick service or fast food restaurant, but get really just a much higher level of quality, they're willing to do that. So I think, table service for that mid-level type of restaurant has kind of gone by the wayside a little bit. And you're seeing a ton of growth in this fast casual sector. With all sorts, in burgers as well as pizza, as well as Mexican food, and really all types of cuisine lends itself well to fast casual.
Yeah, you hit on something there, and I think it's probably the story of the decade, and that is kind of the evolution of fast casual in the last 10 years, at least that we've tracked, has really had a major impression on the casual dining scene. And, if you look at where Applebee's, Chili's, TGI Fridays, et cetera, were a decade ago, essentially they were the power players in casual dining and really held a strong market share. Fast casual came in, especially in the category of the Better Burger segment, bakery cafe, some of those, but something that could work both as a lunch item and as a dinner item those were the magical brands that were really starting to take away from the casual dining scene. I'm kind of curious, do you think we're ever going to see the consumer go back to that kind of dining in the future?
I don't think so. I think we've crossed a threshold where,
Yeah.
that's kind of a dated, idea. I think at the very high end, we're talking about the super fine dining white
Sure,
tablecloth.
sure.
That's going to be maybe a once or maybe twice a week occasion for a lot of
Yeah.
diners. But if someone just finishes yoga or they, finish a workout at the gym, they want to be able to go in their sweatpants or their yoga gear and sit at the bar or sit at the community table and have a burger, have a salad, something like that. Whereas maybe they're not going to feel as comfortable going by themselves or going with a group to a place where you have to get dressed up a little bit more. I think as people
Sure.
get busier and busier with their careers and families and things like that, fast casual, it has casual in the name. I mean, it lends itself well to an everyday, of the week eating type of occasion.
Yeah. A friend of mine, Greg Dollarhide, who was one of the
Veggie
original
grill.
guys, yeah, Veggie Grill, obviously at Baja Fresh there in California, probably one of the original pioneers of the categories of fast casual. He was working in a lot of those and obviously had to go head to head with someone like Chipotle. But he said something that I always thought was kind of interesting, and he kind of really hits on the same point you just hit on, is that this is the way it's going to be from ever.
Yeah.
That just the change in how dining habits have happened, it's not going to change. But something he was referencing was that this segment was really kind of taking the air out of the casual dining, meaning you're still getting most, if not all, of the quality. You're not getting all of the price, and then tip is kind of not necessarily a thing. So it makes it even a bigger difference. And then, of course, time and speed. And I think those continue to be the big, nails in the coffin for the big casual dining change. But I do agree with you. We're going to see experience dining probably be more of the Cajun-based type scenarios in the future, for sure. Let's go to the next question here, and that is talking about the overall category of the Better Burger segment. So, we've been looking at this for about 20 years. I've been tracking the space all the way back into the mid 90s, and when there
Wow.
was a handful, there was 30 brands that I could count. In our research, where we are today, we're at over 800 brands that are considered fast casual concepts. And Better Burger is still one of the cornerstones of the category. My question is, do you feel that the Better Burger segment is or has the capability to still be kind of the cornerstones? If you look at fast food, burgers are not going away. I mean, with exception of someone like a Chick-fil-A who's really kind of dominating, but currently. But do you feel like the Better Burger segment can still be a cornerstone for dining on a day in, day out basis in fast casual?
I think 100%. I think Americans are always going to love burgers, but as society shifts and becomes super aware of not just the health of people but the health of the planet, people are going to demand better
Right.
quality, better burgers. We're talking about not only just plant-based options and plant-based alternatives, which we'll get into a little bit, but
Yep.
also really knowing about where their ingredients are coming from. So everything from the beef, if it's beef that they're eating, or turkey or bison like we have at Rome, to the produce. They want to know, is it organic, is it locally sourced, were the animals humanely raised, and all of those things. So when we say better burger, I think we really have to, be careful how we define that. But if we're defining it in the way of better for you, better for the environment, I absolutely think that there's a lot of growth to be had in that segment.
Yeah, and I
I
would
kind of think we're
agree.
just at the beginning a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm in the same camp in the sense that I think that the average consumer, especially if you look away from the major markets, have not really got to experience a Rome Artisan or something like it. And when we found you guys, I remember the first time I walked into your location, and I was just completely taken back at the quality level. What you guys were doing there with not only the sourcing side of it, but just the taste profiles, the sides, the craft beer implementation, the wine, all the things that you were really kind of bringing to the table. it just completely kind of reset the bar of what I thought was better burger. And at that time, really, there was only a handful of them out there. Shake Shack was barely even an idea. So
Yeah,
you guys were right there in the
in
beginning.
2010, I remember because I was looking at some of the questions, some of the items we're going to cover, and talking about 15, 10, 15 years
Yeah.
ago. What were the brands that were around? I remember Elevation Burger
Elevation was
was
on the
around.
West
I
Coast.
think I just read something about them where they may have gotten acquired, but they were one of the
Hmm.
first folks out there doing all grass fed. And then definitely a few years later, Burger Lounge
Yep.
came, and more and more. But back then, 2010 and even 2005, there weren't that
No,
many.
not a lot. Not a lot. All right, let's get into the consumer and kind of talk about the demand being changed. Obviously, the frequency numbers have risen. We've seen fast casual continue to grow as an overall segment. We see the frequency numbers continuing to inch up. Obviously, they're not going at the pace they were, say, 5 years ago, but they are still in the positive category where a lot of other sectors of food service today are not getting the frequency numbers. Why do you feel that consumers are going into these brands and saying, hey, I'm going to eat here 4, 5, 10 times a month?
I think the type of demand has changed. I think there's now more of a demand for quality. And like I was saying before, with people being very, very busy with their careers and their families, they want something they can rely on. And that's what, a good brand is, right? It's reliable. But that also relates to variety. So, when you think of Rome and Rome Artisan Burgers, yes, we have burgers, but what a lot of people in San Francisco and the Bay Area appreciate is they can come in and one day have, a burger, but if they want to do a lettuce wrap or a gluten-free bun, they can do that. If they want to get a salad with a little trio of mini burgers on top of
Mm-hmm.
that, they
Yep.
can do that as well. If they want to get our seasonal veggies, they can do that. So providing all of these alternatives, so they're not just getting the same thing every day.
Sure.
It almost feels like they're going to a different restaurant every day.
Yeah.
But I think that, and I think the price point lends itself well as well, because if they're spending $15 or so, that's not so bad. By the time you go to the store, you get
Mm-hmm.
all of the food to prepare, and then you cook it at home, you might spend a little bit more even.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's move into well. There's a lot I want to talk about. Obviously, I'm here with Josh Spiegleman, co-founder and owner at Rome Artisan Burger out of San Francisco. And Josh, I want to get into some topics here, and that is the category of plant-based meat, craft beer, and kind of the future of where this category is going. All right.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, so let's move on into that, Josh, and let's kind of talk about the trends that you're seeing. And you guys are in a little bit of a different spot because you're obviously on the West Coast. You're in San Francisco, so you've got a very high quality consumer. Your consumer trends may be a little different than what you might find in Kansas City, but
Sure.
I'm kind of curious, where do you see the category itself and where the trends are moving? How far into things like plant-based, um, the variety of menu items that you mentioned, but do you see things like ghost kitchens or virtual kitchens starting to play into this? What are your thoughts on future trends here?
I mean, I think, yeah, one by one we can talk about the trends and the type of food and cuisine that people want, and then we can talk about the ghost kitchens and third party deliveries. Those are
Yeah.
all definitely trends we're seeing. Starting off with the plant based, and I think you might have mentioned the word fake meat. I definitely think it's a really hot topic right now, with all of the money being and resources being thrown into Impossible Foods and some of the other brands. For us, our stance at Rome is absolutely plant-based eating is wonderful for people and wonderful for the environment. And our stance on that is, if you're going to eat meat, you should eat it responsibly. And that means
Hmm.
responsibly sourced and responsible sizes of the protein you're eating. Our beef, our 100%
Sure.
grass fed beef, the patties are 5 ounces. Our turkey, our bison, they're 4.5 ounces. So, some people very, very hungry, they want to get a double burger, fine. But, 4.5 or a 5 ounce patty for a lot of people, that's a good enough amount. So that's a responsible, size for protein for most people to consume in a meal. So, if you're going to eat meat that's been sourced well, pasture raised, humanely raised, hormone free, antibiotic free. And if you can, you come into Rome, you have 100% grass fed beef, free range turkey, all natural bison. We're really, the highest level of quality of meat that you can find. We strongly believe that. And then as far as plant based, we have a lot of plant based alternatives as well. We have a salad that we're always changing up seasonally, our farmers market salad. And then we've always got different seasonal veggies. Just really talking to our suppliers, talking to the farmers, seeing what's out there and in season, and then making it in a really delicious way, kind of like you would make at home. So I think a lot of some of the bigger chains are definitely pursuing some of the plant-based meats, like the Impossible meats. We're not doing that. We're opting for a more wholesome, whole food
Right.
product that we create in house. We have a organic house-made veggie burger. It's got quinoa, brown rice, black beans, beets, dates, herbs, and spices. So that's our veggie burger. We're always looking to innovate and try new things and different things. And to the credit of the folks at Impossible, I know that they're changing the formulation. Originally, it was made with textured wheat protein, which is essentially gluten, and a lot of people just didn't want a gluten
Yeah.
patty. So now they've moved to
Right.
soy. So some people don't want soy. Maybe there's going to be another iteration of it that's even better. So I commend them for what they're doing, for their their efforts on doing something that's better for the environment and getting away from the factory farm meats. We're all in support of that. We have been since day one. But for us, we're going to keep going with our house-made organic veggie burger and make it as good as we can. And we're definitely going to keep an eye on some of the plant-based meat because they're throwing a lot of resources at it, and I think the intentions are very good. It's not quite where we want it to be for something at Rome, and we think our organic veggie burger is fantastic, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, for sure. I'm looking at sourcing because that's something that we continue to see some fast casual concepts starting to, I won't say cut corners, but make
Yeah,
concessions. And I think that's going to come with time because as you build out a chain of 50 or 100 units or even larger, systemizing your programs become very important, keeping everything consistent. But I'm kind of curious, you guys are at 6 units now. How are you handling sourcing? Because your sourcing is considerably different than, say, someone like a Shake Shack.
so fortunately for us, the more we grow, we can definitely get some economies of scale in pricing. We have wonderful relationships with our butcher, with our produce supplier, and our vendors, which we really think of as partners. We talk on the phone regularly with our farmer. From our rancher from 4K Farms in Bozeman, Montana, checking how weather conditions are, checking how the cattle are. So we're really close to our farmers and ranchers. And because of those good relationships that we've had for, with Golden Gate Meats over 10 years, with our produce purveyors, the same amount of time, we do have some favorable pricing. But as we grow, we're just always really looking to do things better. So I think a brand like Chipotle has done a really good job of growing and not compromising
Right.
quality and really staying focused on that mission to provide food that's better for people and better for the planet. And
Yeah.
they're doing that by keeping a simple menu. I know logistically, as you grow, it can become a challenge, and it's a challenge for everyone. But when you're that big, to continue really kind of focused on that same mission is really commendable.
Yeah. Well, Chipotle is also kind of on your camp as well. They're a brand who has actively chose not to go the direction of the fake meat. Which, whether it's lab grown or it's engineered, I think there are going to be some challenges in the space, maybe not right now because there's just such a rush on the market with it, especially in QSR. But once you get into the more artisan style, fast casual concepts that are truly providing, I won't call Chipotle artisan, but their level of quality and their attendance to food is pretty amazing still at this state, considering the number of brand, locations that they have.
Right.
So
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think that's the one thing that I still continue to praise Chipotle on. Obviously that was one of the reasons I wrote the book on them.
Yes, you did. The Chipotle effect. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was definitely understanding that. So, but I want to go also into a couple more areas here, Josh, and that is technology. So technology has been kind of, if you look back 10 years ago, where social media was obviously considerably different than it is today. And then also just in general, mobile technology, online ordering, the ability for virtual and or ghost kitchens. What are your thoughts on that whole evolution as we go into the next decade?
Well, I think you covered a lot of the aspects of technology that are really affecting the restaurant industry, and you really have to be on your game.
Yep.
One is social media. It was the first thing you mentioned. Instagram is where it's at. There's still room for posts on Facebook and Twitter, but we find the most engagement on Instagram. So
Yep.
getting really high quality photography and fun posts that are kind of showing what your restaurants have, what the interior of the restaurants look like, and then the food itself. So that's a real platform for advertising your brand, for reaching consumers all over the world that really was not that prevalent before. So
Yeah.
Instagram, social media, whether you have someone in house or you're hiring a person to do it, but just really being on that and making sure the posts are clear and concise and good photographies and showcase your brand well. And then as far as the POS, your point of sale system, you got to make sure you have a good POS provider that's going to be really easy for the team members to use, and also for the customers as well. We're using Toast right now. We think it's a really wonderful platform. They've raised a lot of money. They have a lot of resources behind it, and they're innovating too.
Yeah.
And the integration with third party delivery into the POS system is another item that we can discuss. And then just having an online presence is so important. So I think integrating all of those items is so important. Just giving your customers a way to interact with you however they can. If they want to write reviews on Yelp or TripAdvisor or Facebook or Google or any of the different platforms, we look at that as a way to engage our customer and get really valuable feedback. And then as far as interacting with the brand and placing orders, can they place an order online for delivery? Can they place an order for pickup? Which third-party platforms are you on? And
Right.
we've been doing this a while, since those third-party platforms kind of started. So we've seen which ones have grown and which ones have kind of fallen by the wayside. And we're on a handful of different platforms, depending on the market we're in. If it's in San Francisco, if it's outside of San Francisco, but Caviar, and then DoorDash recently acquired Caviar, so
Yep.
that's going to be
Yep.
merged into one. Postmates and Uber Eats, we see those as kind of the bigger players. So DoorDash
Sure.
and Caviar, Postmates and Uber Eats, and just making sure that everything on the menu there is updated. If we're updating seasonal offerings on our menu board in the restaurant, we got to make sure we do it online, and we got to make sure we do it with our third party delivery providers. And that plays into logistics as well. When you are on one of those third party platforms and your food goes out, if Postmates made a mistake, if there was a mistake by Caviar or something like that, the customer is looking to Rome. They're looking at,
Yeah.
hey,
Sure.
I ordered this from Rome. So it really does have to be a partnership. And we do feel like we have really good partnerships with the platforms where our brand is represented, because everything goes back to the brand. But I
Yeah.
think, again, it's just really being accessible to your customer in as many ways as possible. And the ease of use, how good is your mobile ordering, how good is your app, if you have an app, and just making it really easy for customers.
Right. How far do you feel that with on demand and the consumer data side of it, that because we're seeing some obvious things. We've been tracking Grubhub and kind of the declining transaction numbers that they reported here recently. We think, based on what we're seeing in terms of our social data index, is that we're seeing a downward trend, especially in transaction count, which usually indicates a couple of things. One is it's becoming a commodity, and then two, it's price point. So do you feel that consumers are getting to a point where pricing is truly becoming a part of their decision-making process when ordering online?
I think
like
it
that?
depends on the type of consumer, and I think it depends on the market. So I would ask:
Yeah.
is that are those downward trends you're seeing just for Grubhub, and are they national trends, or is it for third party platforms in general?
It's so we track 25 different third-party platforms, and this was the first quarter that we saw a dip in total transactions. And then about 3 weeks, 4 weeks later, Grubhub announced that they had a 6% drop in transactions, which is significant when you look at where they're going. And I think their CEO even admitted that there are some challenges that they see in the commoditization of the service. Obviously, with Uber, they're dealing with their own little world
Yeah,
of issues. But I'm just curious, has price point finally hit critical mass to say, because even me, and I feel like I could order more online and for delivery, especially with two young children. I mean, we eat out constantly, but what I have found is that I've kind of moved away from ordering from Uber and Grubhub only because of that price point. And then, I have kind of the inside track because I know you guys are paying anywhere from 10 to 30% in addition to that fee. So
right.
I'm just kind of
I mean,
curious where
I
that's going
think
to
it
go.
could be that, when you're adding on some, on some of the ordering platforms, in addition to,
Right.
the price of the food, you have to pay a delivery fee and a
Hmm.
surcharge and then a tip.
Yep.
And it really does add up.
Sure.
I think that's one factor. We've still seen really strong sales from these third party platforms. So it hasn't really affected us. But I do think that one of the other items that's coming into effect is Amazon, now owns Whole Foods. So you can order via Instacart, you can get your groceries delivered. So not only can you order from
Right.
restaurants on,
Yeah.
third party platforms, but you can have your groceries delivered too. So it's just essentially more competition. And it may be part of what you're talking about. Like at first, it was very novel and people ordering 4 or 5 times a week, and it's worn off a little bit. So I think it's just a combination of those factors, and just the ability to order groceries to your door in the same way that you can order from a restaurant is maybe making it a little easier for people to do that.
All right, Josh. So let's talk a little bit further about kind of the virtual and ghost restaurant concept. I was talking to Andre over at Doghouse in Los Angeles, and they've gone to the extent of actually building virtual franchise brands where there's no physical, retail brand. Do you see
Right.
that as a potential future?
I do, and I think from some sources I've heard that some of the bigger brands like DoorDash are actually getting into that, where they're kind of
See, there you go.
you knew about this? You know about
Yes.
everything, I assume, where they're hosting these ghost kitchens and taking,
Yeah.
half a dozen or a dozen brands and say, they like Rome, we might not have a restaurant in Seattle. They would kind of host this ghost kitchen for us and then
Hmm.
be able to, use it as kind of a commissary and host
Right.
several brands. So that's already happening. Look, I mean, I think it is definitely happening already. I think it's a lot easier if you already have an established brand and people know about you
Right.
versus going into it without having your brick and mortar. I think for us as well, the brick and mortar, going to Rome is always going to be about the experience of
Sure.
sitting in the restaurant, enjoying food with family and friends, and um, you know coming up to our bar or sitting at the community table, that type of thing. But if you want food delivered to your home on the go, and
Yeah.
you want to cut out some of the real estate costs, I think these ghost kitchens are a great alternative for that.
Yeah.
But again, for established brands, I think it probably will be a work a lot better than for brands that are just getting off the ground.
Yeah. I've gone on record talking about where this could potentially lead because I still believe that these third-party delivery services, just their profitability, for them to truly get a return on their business, they're going to have to come up with some other business models. Uber now is doing payments, so they're going
Yeah.
after even other things. And I still don't put it past them, especially because I feel like, these cloud kitchens or these virtual concepts that someone like a Grubhub or a DoorDash or a Uber are starting to launch, meaning bringing in brands to help foster them and prop them up. I think the next step though could be them actually creating brands themselves, meaning the Ubers and the Grubhubs of the world, because at some point they're going to have to get profitable. And at
Right.
some point there's going to be a pushback on fees, either from the customer or from the operator.
Right.
It just is going to happen. So I just am very intrigued, and I still
Yeah.
believe that that's going to be the future of on-demand delivery, and especially if they've got all the customer data, which
Yeah.
they do. You know?
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think it's already happening. It's
Yeah.
just in the very beginning stages, but it's happening. So it'll be interesting to see how that evolves.
Yeah. All right, Josh, it has been great talking to you again, and amazing to see that Rome is doing so well. Not amazing. I mean, I kind of anticipated it, but it's good to see that you guys are developing there. And I love the fact that you're staying very localized in your market, because I think sometimes brands, that it can work for some. It just depends on who it is. I'm not saying that it doesn't work for some, but it's good to see that you guys are really kind of expanding in your localized market in the Bay Area. I think that's a really smart approach for brand growth.
Thanks very much. Yeah, we plan to continue to grow in the Bay Area, but we do have our eyes on some other markets as well. So stay tuned, over the next year or two, and
Oh
I think
boy,
you'll see us
here we go.
popping up in some different markets. Yeah.
There you go. Well, that's good. It's good that you guys are starting to make those moves. If you were looking at a brand startup today, a restaurant that is had to go through the trials and the blood, sweat, and tears of what you guys have had to go through there in building your business, what would you say would be the one thing for a startup entrepreneur that you'd say, hey, watch out for this?
I would say, I think just being resilient don't quit. Just don't give up. If you believe in your brand and you have a purpose and you have a passion and you have a good enough customer base, all of the other things, all of the market forces and dynamics, it's not just happening to you, it's happening to everyone. If it's high construction costs or high labor costs or high food costs. And I would just encourage those folks starting up to stick to their core values and never compromise on quality.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, for all of you listening in, this, of course, has been Josh Spiegleman, owner and founder at Rome Artisan Burgers out of San Francisco, California. It's been great having you on the show. Make sure and subscribe to this podcast. You can do so over on iTunes or on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. It's likely that Fast Casual Nation, the podcast, is available there. If you have not had a chance to catch the actual series of this show, do so on Amazon Prime. So if you're an Amazon Prime member, you can get this free. We've got two seasons up there. And we also have the full documentary, which is the first and only full documentary on the Fast Casual segment. Stay tuned right here for more great Fast Casual content coming to you right here from Foodable Network. We'll catch you next time.